when did you realize you're dating an idiot? He was getting his license renewed, and they asked him if he wanted to be an organ donor. He said no. When I asked why, he told me it was because he didn't want the government to come knocking for any of his organs when he still needed them. He really thought that becoming an organ donor meant that at any time his organs could be taken. Boyfriend took me to a fancy restaurant and we ordered wine. When the waiter came back, he gave my BF the cork to sniff. My BF grabbed it, sucked on it, and licked it like a lollipop, all excited, while the waiter looked uncomfortable, poured our glasses and slunk away. Making Kool-Aid, how much sugar does it need? It says on the package. Just tell me. 1 cup. Okay, there's only a 1/3 cup here. Where is the whole cup? I don't know, just use the 1/3 cup. Well, how many scoops do I do, then? It's 1/3 of a cup. I don't know fractions, just tell me. I'm not going to tell you. Figure it out. It's 1/3 of a cup. How many do you think it would be? I don't know. A very guess is Ed Hatligan. Just tell me. 3. The girl was 20 years old at the time. I'll never forget that. Edit. Jesus tap dancing Christ. To answer all the people that asked. 3 years. That was like 6 months in. I stuck around because, as some of you said, Dark Souls. I guess I smash my head into a wall in relationships too. He decided that he didn't want to poop while staying with me in student halls, so he didn't poop for 10 days and seriously messed up his digestive system. Edit. To clarify, I was living in student halls which were nothing more than bedrooms, bathrooms, and kitchens. It was a half an hour walk away from the university itself. His excuse was that he has anxiety about pooping places he's not familiar with, around a lot of people he did not know at the time, as it was quite near the beginning of our relationship. When he answered his cell phone in the movie theater and proceeded to have a loud conversation with his dealer during the movie. Edit. Yes, I realize that this reflects poorly on my own judgment at the time. I was 19 and thinking with my dick. If I recall correctly, it was weed, but in Arizona in the 1990s, it was still a terrible idea to broadcast it in a public place. The movie was I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. He picked the movie. He actually believed that, if you had money, it was because God thought you were a good person, and only bad people were poor. The truly ironic part of this was that he couldn't get enough work to make a living, and had to ask his wealthy father for handouts all the time. I was trying to carefully manage the breakup, since we worked down the hall from each other, when he decided to dump me, because he didn't like who I voted for in the election. My ex was the oldest of 6. We had been dating for about a week, both 20. I commented, "You have wide hips for a man." He replies, "It's from carrying children." I was totally baffled till his youngest brother walked in, and he picked him up and held him to the side, rested on his hip, as you do with toddlers. I had to sit him down and explain that you don't get wide hips from literally carrying children around. We were laying out under the stars and he asked why some were brighter and others dimmer. I told him that there were different sizes, brightnesses, and distances away. Confused silence. You mean they are not stuck up there? I'm lying there thinking this can't be true. But oh yes, it was. Upon further questioning I found that he believed the night sky was a big dark blanket-like thing with stars stuck on it. The fact that our sun was a star also blew his mind, and that just like our sun, other stars could have planets. Too much. I was crushed. I almost broke up with him there and then. But he was very earnest and wanted me to teach him. So I tried. 2 years later, and a whole lot of stupid later, we broke up. Edit. He worked with kids with special needs and did a really good job at it. He was well-meaning generally. He wanted to become the world's leading expert in autism. Fine. Good for you. So, I brought him along to my university library, where he spent a day copying a textbook on autism or line by line. I asked him how it was going. He said great. Then he and I had a conversation, where I told him that to be a world expert on autism would take more than reading and copying books. It would involve research, or being really involved in the field, and gaining formal education in it. After that one day in the library, he never went back. I didn't say he couldn't, he just lost interest. He did that a lot, would get super stoked on one subject, and then the next day it would just be over, forgotten. This happened with poker, after he watched the movie Rounders. He lived with a bunch of guys. They all didn't like him, but he was completely oblivious to this. They asked me a lot why I was with him. He set up poker night immediately and then lost all his money. He was super poor, so he lost about $100, and I forbade him from getting loans to gamble more. Again, the next day, it was gone from his head. Same thing with free mountain climbing. After we watched a Mission Impossible movie where Tom Cruise scaled a rock face with no ropes, I told him he should try free skydiving instead. I was getting pretty sick of this crap by this point. He laughed and it was gone from his mind again. His big dream, and one that actually lasted the longest, was that he wanted to be a mortgage broker. His dad was one, and was really successful. He just couldn't do the math though. He had to take a course and I tried to teach him the formulas, but he just couldn't do it. We were running through problems, and then he turned to me with an exasperated look on his face. Why do the numbers keep changing? As in, why would the numbers change in a certain formula from one problem to another? This almost tied for the most stupid experience, the big blanket in the sky, but not knowing about space and the sun and general knowledge of how the earth is situated in terms of our solar system just seemed a little more profoundly deficient to me. For all those asking, he did not have a sweet dick. He was not especially attractive. He was sweet and well-meaning sometimes when he wanted to be, but he got more and more abusive as time went on. He controlled my every move by the end, and as I had low self-confidence, I felt like it was my fault and that by being better, he would eventually treat me better. It did not. Things were going towards physical abuse and I left. He stalked me a little afterwards. Through a natural move due to school, I took the opportunity to lay low, and he left me alone, thankfully. It ended 15 years ago, and since then I've married, and I'm very happy with his polar opposite, an extremely intelligent man with a sweet dick. I had been dating this girl for a few months, and it was Christmas time. We weren't super serious, but it was serious enough that I was buying her Christmas presents. I found something for her that was perfect, and it had a connection to some funny event involving her and my cat. So I made the present from the cat. I thought I was being cute and she would make the connection. Instead, she got pissed that my cat got her a present and I didn't. I thought she was joking. To make matters worse, we were at her parents' place and they backed her up. It was extremely awkward and I realized it wasn't going to work out. She claimed to have a doctorate in emotionology. A doctorate? I asked her what her master's thesis was on and what her dissertation included. She looked at me like I was eating dork knobs retarded. Insisted it was a legitimate study. Got angry if her friends didn't call her doctor when introducing her. Kept a ledger of unacceptable words and colors that were not to be used in her presence. Her field of expertise proved that these words and colors oozed negativity and bred evil, causing murder, etc. One of the worst parts was meeting this whack job gaggle of friends she had that believed all this shit. It's like the stupid could be contracted and spread. I could talk about that brief relationship for hours. The absolute horseshit this person believed or fabricated was dumbfounding. Then there were completely logical concepts that just seemed downright alien to her. She could not grasp them at all, such as the difference between the light spectrum of color shades and pigment shades. In high school I was in an extracurricular program after school. There was one portion of it that was pretty much all girls. I dated a girl from this portion all throughout high school. I went to all of their events and helped out. I always wondered why none of the other girls or their parents really talked to me. Right before we graduated I brought it up to her, and she told me that she told all of them that I was physically and verbally abusive all the time. When I asked her why, she told me it was so no one else would steal me away from her. I broke up with her shortly after. He would argue with me, even when we agreed on a subject. It was the weirdest thing. For example, one time I told him I thought it was sad that drug users were thrown in jail, and that we should have a better rehab system instead of turning people into criminals. He told me I was wrong, and they were criminals, because they are breaking the law. Then he went on to aggressively tell me that they should be in rehab and not jail. I was like, that's what I just said. And he argued with me about that too. No, you said, blah blah blah, lies lies lies. Like I don't know what I said lol. This is how all of our conversations would go. He really was an idiot. First time cooking together. I handed him a block of cheese to grate and he turned to me and said, "I've never grated cheese before. How do you use this thing?" Then about a half hour later he apologized for being vegan and said, "Sorry about my dietary restrictions. Vegan recipes can be hard to find." Never did he say he was vegan. Then I told him, if he was vegan we'd have to make a different dish because of the cheese. He replied with, "Why would you think I couldn't have cheese? I'm vegan. I can have vegetables." He actually thought cheese was a vegetable and he was vegan. Nope, never again. One of my girlfriends from high school asked how I could go through so much deodorant when I had to buy it like once a month for gym class. She said she had to buy more once a year or so. Turned out she had a plastic cap on the top of her deodorant. There are a lot more, but the one I loved the most was every day she would put her car in neutral and push it out of her parking spot. I just assumed her shifter was messed up or she had a bad transmission, but didn't want to replace it since the car was like 5 to 6 years old at the time. One day I had to drive her home because she hurt her ankle and without even thinking about it put the car in reverse and she screamed at me when I put the car in racing to back it up. She seriously didn't know her car had reverse and for the 3 years she'd been driving it had manually backed it up every single time. One night she was driving us in her car, never really happened, and I noticed a few oncoming vehicles flash their headlights. Sure enough, she had her high beams on. Turns out she thought the universal blue symbol for high beams on the dashboard just meant headlights are on. She had been driving that new car with high beams on all day and night for at least 6 months. I told her how to turn her high beams off, and she pretty much had a complete meltdown and got angry at me for making her feel stupid. She's dead to me now, but she's probably out there somewhere driving without her high beams on thanks to me, the huge asshole. You're welcome oncoming traffic. My brother's ex compelled me to keep a running list of things she said in the break room at work after someone suggests making popcorn in the microwave. You can't use that microwave for popcorn. It doesn't have a popcorn button. This was at Radio Shack, where she sold electronics for a living. While watching my brother hang trousers on those clamp style hangers. Is that what those are for? Yeah. What did you think they were for? I don't know. I threw all mine away because they made all my shirts square. Me, you at least know the Rolling Stones, right? Duh. The t-shirt company. Me, you know, they make all those shirts with the big mouth and tongue on them. While enrolled in a nursing program, she called to ask my brother whether a woman could get pregnant from oral sex. She was quite certain one could. Met this woman on a dating site, 30s, talk on the phone briefly, passed each other's phone test, kind of thought it was weird she referred to me as her boyfriend right away, but she was good looking. Agreed to meet for lunch that afternoon, art gallery and drinks. Not engaging at all. She talked about very superficial things with not much depth either. Didn't ask what I did for a living or anything else personal about me. Didn't know who the PM of our country was and had been the PM for a decade. The kicker came when I tested her to see if she actually was listening to what I was saying, because I had the feeling she wasn't. So I threw in I was addicted to heroin for 5 years and I'm 1 year sober without blinking an eye. Like I was talking about my favorite color, oh yeah. Ever opinion she had, she would end with literally agree. And I had to say yes or no. Inappropriate talk about her parents' sexual escapades on the first date. Then told me she was a blue baby. Never hearing the term, I asked what that meant. Infant deprived of oxygen at birth for a period of time. Then it clicked. She was good looking, great bod. She wanted to come back to my place, but it felt like I was dealing with someone who was shy a couple of points from the severely mentally challenged spectrum. And that was our first and last date. Felt bad for her because someone is going to take advantage of her. He called me at 1:30 AM to pick him up and take him back to Job Corp, kind of like a very strict boarding school plus technical college for high school grads. He needed to be back by 2 AM or get in trouble, and he was 20 minutes away high as a kite and drunk as fuck, both of which will get you in trouble at Job Corp. I asked him what the hell he was thinking. He told me his cousin had wanted to hang out and smoke/drink together, and his cousin had disappeared after he, my ex, had passed out on the couch. I took him back to Job Corp. and the very next night he does the exact same thing. Except this time it's 2:30 am, has already late. Maybe the first time is bad planning, but the exact same thing happening again the next night. That is 100% straight up stupidity. When he insisted that the moon's gravitational pull caused my periods, that it would actually help pull the blood and lining from uterus, I burst out laughing, and he started slamming stuff in anger because he said I was making him feel stupid. I replied, well, I'm sorry you feel stupid for saying something stupid. I was not a nice partner. Like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.